There you go, buddy. Zep, you're on.
Deer Camp is now open for business. I wish it was Friday night up at
The
Deer Camp.
Dirty Point Buck in northern Minnesota, boys.
The big dirty pointer. How did you guys do with Deer Camp? Now, for anybody out there downloading, listening on liveandsocial.com, thank you very much. The Four Outdoorsmen, welcome.
iTunes.
Yeah, we're ahead of the big deer opener here in Minnesota, Wisconsin the following week, but this is the big opener. We talk about the fishing opener and waterfowl and everything else we got going on here in the lovely Midwest and the great state of Minnesota, but the deer opener, there's nothing that quite matches it. I mean, you get...
Except the motorcycle breaking up the great intro of the Four Outdoorsmen.
That's true on his way here.
I'm running behind. I'm always
How
running
many
behind.
hunting or fishing openers in any state where they can take a kid out of school and it's acceptable? Minnesota deer opener, it's acceptable. They shut down plants.
Absolutely.
For deer opener.
Yeah.
And work.
When I was 13 years old, my dad took me deer hunting for the first time. I remember I was at St. Casimir Grade School, east side of St. Paul, my old stomping grounds, and I didn't tell the nuns. My nun's name was Sister Mary Claudia, and she's a wonderful lady, and I just liked her. She was a good person, but I didn't have the balls to tell her or ask her if I could go hunting for a couple of days with my dad.
Yeah.
And when I was gone Monday and Tuesday, she called home, and Mom told her where I was, and she said when he comes back Wednesday, maybe it was Thursday, I think I took 3 days of school off, which was rare, and I had to meet with Sister Mary Claudia before I started school, and I actually cried because I felt so bad by not having the guts to say, listen, do you mind if I do this? Of course it's okay. So I snuck out of school for 3 days, and one of the greatest opening hunting seasons of my life.
You know what? My dad has had me in the deer stand with him probably since I've been 9 years old, and it was amazing because he would take me out of school on Monday, and I got to miss the whole week and then came back on Sunday because for our family, deer opener is like Christmas. I mean, it's holier than Christmas. When I went to college, my mother and dad told me, you can miss coming home for Christmas, Boomer, but if you miss deer opener, you're pretty much shit out of luck. So it is an amazing holiday, and I tell you what, there's so many stories that are built around it. I mean, I still remember the first deer I shot.
Yeah, well, you'll never forget that.
I tracked it for 2 days, guys, after shooting this 8-point buck out of a foxhole. Jumped over the fence. I didn't know that at 30 feet away with a 257 Roberts with a 3x9 scope that I had it on 9 power, and all I saw was brown looking at it. Took a shot, hit it. It kind of jumped backwards, and now you take that second shot to expire the animal and harvest it.
You're freaked out. You're just watching this animal do its
and it's
thing.
like running away, and my dad comes running up to the foxhole about 40 minutes later after I'm screaming in the woods at my dad. And I didn't let it settle down for 30 minutes. We tracked that 8-point buck for 2 days, and I never got it. I mean, I was sick, but I learned a valuable lesson about letting it sit. But, I mean, guys, I think I was 12 years old when it happened, and I can still remember, like, the end of just on the second, right now, I can remember seeing that deer out of my left eye, jumping over that fence and having it look into the sun and seeing that 4x4 rack and going, God.
Mine wasn't nearly as spectacular and was almost a little traumatic. I was allowed in the stand, and Dad had put me in the stand in this creek. It was a dried creek bed, but it was a long creek bed at the Sandpoint Township. The deer notoriously ran through. So he put me out there in a stand on the end of this creek bed, and he said, when it gets close to dark, come on in. Just follow the creek bed back to the truck. And we're going to be walking this creek bed and this entire thing. So be looking for other hunters, and we'll let you know when we're getting close. So I sat up there and didn't see anybody. I didn't see any deer. I might have dozed off. I probably wasn't paying attention. I was 12 years old. After being out there for about 6 hours, my interest started to wane a little bit. So I figured, well, it's not quite dark, but I want to go back to the truck. I don't know where everybody's at. You start freaking out thinking that everybody left you and forgot about you.
I've been there.
Right. Yeah. So I start walking back, and I've got my rifle slung over my shoulder, my hands in my pocket, and my nose looking straight down at the ground. And I stopped. I got to a fence, and I stopped. I was like, I got to crawl over the fence. And I look up, and there's a little, what I thought was a doe. A nice-looking doe, I thought. Standing probably only about 30 yards away, broadside.
You mean by an attractive doe, very nice-looking doe?
Well, just a nice-sized doe. So I didn't even think about it.
Did she smell good?
Smelled great. She was in estrus. Smelled great. Totally pulled me in like a tractor beam. I was in rut.
Nothing has changed.
And I didn't even hesitate to think, well, do I want to shoot a doe? It's the first day. I should wait for a buck. Just all my senses went out the window. Whipped that shoulder, that 300 Savage, off my shoulder, and pulled it up, and bang! Shot her right in the ass. She went down. She drug her tail around, her rear end around, bawling and screaming. And I went over there like I had seen Dad do so many times because I'm going to cut her throat with my knife. But, this is a deer that's moving around and still its front end's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And I can't get a hold of her, and she's tossing me all around. And I'm just making a mess out of it. And when Dad comes over, stand back and puts one in her head. And that's when we realized it was not a doe.
I don't think Pete is going to be listening to this story.
No, a button buck. A little button buck. And it was so small, Dad ended up throwing it over his shoulders. When we're walking into camp, Grandpa yells, "You got a fox!" And that was my first very unimpressive deer, was that little button buck that I think they ended up shoving into a 10-gallon cooker when we threw it up. They're like, because my uncles thought it was funny, they're like, "Brian, it's so small we can get it in a 10-gallon cooker."
I find
Deer roast.
I find it interesting that we're going to talk about deer hunting stories, and we're going to talk about our week as well. And before we even started the show, the first question Mark had for Boomer is, have you ever masturbated in your deer stand?
And everybody knows what the answer to that is.
That's the question. From
Every
our
male
producer,
knows
Mark
the
Luther.
answer to that
Hey, let's
one.
talk about, how was your week?
Hey, wait, speaking of fox,
go
though,
ahead.
real quick, Stru, that reminds me of, we have all these fancy scents out there. You got
Yeah.
buck bomb, you got tinks, I can't remember the other names.
Estrus, urine, doe, and buck.
No, when we went out to the deer stand, when we started, my mom and dad had, because my mom was a taxidermist, had like gallons of fox pee, right? And we would douse ourselves in fox urine. Oh, man. You would reek across the entire woods. So when you talked about that fox,
Yeah.
I still remember that stench. I'd be sitting in the stand and I'd be looking at my dad. And when we first started hunting, it was tough when you were 12 years old with my old man, because we got out there at 5 a.m., and I had a little milk gallon to pee in, and coffee was the only thing to keep you warm, and some really cold sandwiches, and you didn't leave that deer stand till pitch black.
Yeah, God help you if Dad found out that you were out of that deer stand at any point.
Yeah.
We got an egg sandwich and an apple.
And some frozen Snicker bars. You'd get the candy, they'd be frozen solid.
Yeah, I'm not
Break
even
it too.
sure
Yeah.
if he even gave us any water. That was back in the days where you don't need water.
I don't think they had bottled
Suck it
water
up.
then. Yeah.
I
Well, they
told
did have
you,
bottled water,
my son Mike, who still hunts, but he was one of these guys that was always concerned about his scent. He would actually pee in a bottle, put a cover on it, then light up a cigarette. It didn't make any sense to me.
We used to get in the whole scent and talk. Dad would laugh because he'd make Chris and I go up and rub up and down against the cedar trees and to get our scent off of us. And he's standing over there smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple guys in deer camp that would smoke the cigarettes, and then we had one guy named Jim when deer camp was just blooming in the Stelmax, and he would actually call Jim's foo-foo juice, and I don't know what kind of musk it was, but it was like a cologne. What was a famous cologne back then? A musk cologne.
English leather.
English leather chaps or whatever the hell
High
it was.
karate.
And he would spray that on, and I swear my dad and mom told me that the does would just flock his stand.
Drakkar.
I used my
Drakkar.
Yeah.
The old green
Brutes.
polo.
Brutes was a good
That
one.
was a good
Yeah,
one
my
back
dad
in the
used
day.
high karate. I remember the first
karate.
time I put that on, my eyes watered all night. My date, I was like 15 or something like that, thought I was crying all night.
I remember in high
Sex
school,
Panther.
the first time I put cologne on and I reeked. I thought, I didn't know you're only supposed to put one spray
no.
or two sprays on the neck. I
Smells
decided
like
to do the
Bigfoot's
whole Abercrombie and Fitch shirt thinking I was a stud.
Like in the commercials where they just got a cheek,
yeah.
they fill up their palm
yeah.
and splash.
The girl
it
that
on.
I liked, I sat next to her and she goes, "What stinks?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, hang on. When I was 14 years old, the second year I went hunting with my dad, and I had acne issues, and I was using something called.
Wait, did you have back
no,
knee or acne?
no. Using something called Clearasil, I think. It might have
Sure.
been
Oh, yeah.
Theraplim
Oh,
or
yeah.
something. And I put it on, and I'm walking out the woods. My old man says, "Jesus Christ, who smells like a French whore?" I think it's me, Dad. How was your week, Zep? What did you do this week?
I had a good week. It was Halloween week. The only thing I did outdoors-wise, because I did some working things, Halloween capital of the world, that
You do any
drunken tent party.
Charity work.
No charity work this week, unfortunately. But I did go out and sit in a a deer blind where I will be hunting, not this opening weekend because I'm one of those tag-along hunters.
That's fun.
You don't get opener invite.
It's family. Yeah, it's family weekend. So I'm going up the following weekend, but they're bowing up there now, or were last weekend. So I went up and got to see some of the juicy buck in the trail cam that I might have a shot at.
That's fun.
That
Yeah,
second
good for you.
weekend.
Did you name it?
And then, they've got names for all of them, but they've got 3 and 4 year old 8-pointers up there like we had cattle in South Dakota. And but I did go up and I sat while he was bowing. We sat in a nice ground blind and just watched him move around the food plots a little bit and took a look at some good ones that weren't within bow range. But boy, if it was rifle season, yeah.
Did you see any signs of rut?
No, we
No
really
scrapes or anything yet? I suppose not.
We really didn't get out in the field. We went out for bow, so we went out probably, it was about 4:30. It was, actually we went out a little bit later because it was daylight savings. That was the first morning. So I think we went out about 5 o'clock, got in the blind, and then really sat there. And he was more just watching than anything else, and we're just kind of watching him move from a water source that they had into a food plot, kind of along a tall, grassy, I don't know. We used to call them sloughs in South Dakota.
Yeah, we call them sloughs.
Yeah, a slough patch, and they kind of come up out of that slough patch into that corn, and you got about probably a 20 or 30 yard good look at them as they move from that slough patch, that tall grass patch,
That's exciting,
into that corn, and well within rifle range, but not within bow range. And then we got hungry for breakfast. About 9 o'clock, we bolted for town to have a nice breakfast.
Well, let's talk about Boomer's fishing experience. What happened to Mille Lacs last week, buddy?
I tell you what, Nicole and I had a chance to take the Illumicraft T-Pro up to Mille Lacs. And as you guys know on Facebook, there's a lot of controversy. Walleye season is done up there, and a lot of people have been chasing the big brownies, right? The big smallmouths on the charter boats, and a lot of different fishermen out there. And we joined Jimmy Bell from Illumicraft as well, and his lovely wife, Allison. We went up to Isle, Minnesota, and we had a great bite to eat, and it was a lot of fun. And some people had recognized Nicole right when we got in there for breakfast and wanted to take some pictures, so she had a big smirk on her face. And we got out there, and boy, she was kicking my ass at first, right? I was talking all this crap about live bait rigging, I had these big chubs, and she was using plastics, and before I know it, she had 3 big smallies in the boat before I had none, right? Like 6-pound smallmouths. Right?
You guys are pretty competitive.
Yeah, we have to be at complete opposite sides. That boat is 19 feet 8 inches to be exact, and we are probably on the far corners of both.
Can you
19
imagine
feet,
being
8 inches.
trapped between these two? On
Not
a
at
boat?
all.
I have been.
I tell you what.
It's like mom and dad fighting when you're 5.
Yeah, I tell you
man.
what. Every boat around could tell if we were arguing or not. But it was really great. And then I switched into a jig and wrap, and we got out there by the east side and just crushed them deep. And she caught 4, I caught 3. If we do the weight, we'll see where it is. But I'll remember she had 3 and I had none, right? And all of a sudden I go to net this. I get this big hook set on the jig and wrap, right? And Nicole is messing with the net, and I'm getting frustrated because I'm getting my ass kicked by her, to be honest with you. And all of a sudden I think I let a little F-bomb go a little loud about getting the net, right? And I know Jimmy Bell is going, hey, Boomer, it's all right, and he's like 20 yards away in a boat. I'm like, uh-oh, got to settle down. But I tell you what, that smallmouth bite up on Mille Lacs is just terrific, guys. I mean, they are big, they are beautiful, they are fat. I think the biggest ones, we both got a 20-incher, probably north of about 6 pounds. We bought a scale just for this trip, right, because of the competitiveness between us, and we really wanted to see how big these things weighed. Well, my dumb head didn't realize you had to buy a battery for it. So we did not have
Battery's not
we
included.
did have nothing to weigh for it. But I tell you, the Mille Lacs smallmouth bite is pretty special, and the weather was good. A lot of the muskie fishing were up in there. I was talking to Josh at Thorn Brothers, a friend of the show.
Sure.
And he had 3/4 of his store up there because there's some of those bays where those tulipy will move in, and then the muskie fishermen just love them. They had okay luck up there. I think the muskie fishing is really going to get good. But the other cool thing I saw on Mille Lacs, besides those smallmouth that we were bringing in the Illumicraft, was the bluebills. We're starting to come in town.
Yeah.
We saw flocks of bluebills.
The migration,
about 200 of them at a time.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So it was quite a special day on the water. I'm hoping to get the Illumicraft out there a couple more times, maybe run it to Traverse, catch some of those walleyes chasing the shiners up the Mustinka River. But it was a blast. But
Good for you.
nothing like the Stru man.
What does Stru man
going
do?
to the Grand Canyon, right, brother? Tell us about
Hell
it.
of an experience. You ask the questions, I'll provide the answers. It was one of the top 10 things I've ever done in my life.
Okay, well, let's start right away because you had talked about it coming into the trip, that big hike down to the bottom and then back out again.
When you do we stayed on tap. We stayed at a hotel on top of Bright Angel Trail on the north side of the Grand Canyon, and we took a shuttle to the south side and went down the south side. I believe I don't even know anymore, but it's about 6 miles down, 5.5 or 6 miles down. And it's not like walking down a sidewalk. It's very, very rough. There's rocks all over. There's ruts from the mules that go up and down all the time. And they have to have logs every 5, 10, 15 feet to prevent erosion so people can literally make their way down this trail.
Kind of like we do with our, what do we call them, those retaining walls, our landscaping.
Yeah, a little bit like that. So it's extremely difficult, and it's a lot harder walking down.
Were you with the group walking down?
There were 8 of us.
Eight of us.
It took us 3 years to make reservations to stay down at a place called the Phantom Ranch down there. Anybody can walk up and down this thing.
I don't think it exists.
Yeah, but I don't blame
Phantom.
them. Yeah.
Ghostly.
But so it's a lot harder walking down. As a matter of fact, my friend John Mark Patton, who's hiked a lot, literally went down. He fell 3 times on the way down.
What'd you call him?
John Mark Patton.
He's got the 3 names. Serial killer.
Yeah.
Did he assassinate a president?
He did not. No,
I'm
that
not
was
going
not
to any place called Phantom Ranch with a guy with 3 names. No.
But it was so anyway. But he's healthy, and I gave him a couple of my hiking sticks so we could finish the track down. And but
it's expensive hiking sticks.
The $10 ones I got from Play It Again Sports, the old ski poles.
Did you really buy a hiking stick, or did you just use a branch?
Old ski poles, pal.
Okay.
Old ski poles that were broken in half.
That works.
But so when you get down, it's so much harder walking down because you're not used to doing this for 6 or 7 hours. It took almost 7 hours for us to walk down, and that's only 5.5 miles. It took 8.5 hours to walk up, and that's 9.5 miles. But walking up, although it's harder work, it's just harder work because it's just putting your foot in front of each other. But walking down was really, really, really hard.
What about the elevation change?
Didn't bother me at all.
Not at all.
As a matter of fact, I heard about that. We were about 2,500 feet at the bottom, about 9,000 feet at the top.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cool. It didn't bother me at all for some reason. I don't know, but that was not it. It was just treacherous hard work. It was a great experience, but it's a one and done for Stru, man. I wouldn't do it again. It's a lot of work.
Did you have to go with other people that you didn't know?
No, we didn't. No.
Okay,
but you'll see people on the trail all the time. You'll see people, some coming up, some going down, and you stop and BS, and what's your story, what are you doing here, and how far are you going, and
well, tell us about the place, this Phantom Ranch. When you got down there, what do? You have a meal? You take a nap?
When Phantom Ranch is cool because we had a bunkhouse, and the bunkhouse, there's 8 of us that went down there as a group, 4 guys and 4 ladies. So we had 2 separate bunkhouses, but they fill them up so there's 4 guys from my group and 4 guys from a different group. And
sounds like summer camp to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, panty raids. Yeah. So
what's my name?
There's people coming and going all the time.
You didn't meet a girl with the trumpet, did you?
I thought
flute.
I thought this was my story.
Flute. That's right.
Wasn't this my story?
All right, we're derailing ourselves again.
I don't want to meet the girl with the trumpet. Oh,
but no, it's a bunkhouse, and they have a canteen down there where you can buy a beer for the $250, whatever it costs. We get to stay on top of the hotel one night, stay 2 nights in the bunkhouse, and it included a breakfast and a dinner. So it's really a good price. And the food was phenomenal. Everything is hauled down there by donkeys. I mean, trash, food, equipment, back and forth. It's the only way to get down there. And once you're down there, the only way you're getting out is walking out, no matter what happens.
So here's a stupid question. When you're down there on the river, right next to the Grand Canyon, are there people fishing that?
No, there weren't when we were there. It's really, really fast, rough water. We saw some people rafting, though.
Yeah.
There was a tour group with about 6 or 7 rafts coming through, and it was really cool watching that go through the fast water. It's but no, saw nobody fishing down there. And if it was, I wouldn't have fished either. You know me. I don't have my pontoon. No.
I'm surprised. I wonder what they get down there as far as fishing. When I was on the Colorado River in Colorado, same river that runs through the Grand Canyon, there were people fishing all up and down that thing. Get a lot of trout fishing in there. But maybe, I suppose, if it's a little too rough. Well, first of all, who's going to hike, 6 miles down to go fishing down there? You're going to drive it on out a little bit till you have easier access.
Go ahead, Boom.
So what do you do? So you hike down there the 8 miles. You're staying at the Phantom Ranch. I mean, what do you do during the day? Once
recuperate. Your body is really, really, really sore. My hips and my knees and my calves were really sore the first day. So it takes you a day to recuperate. People do this in one day, not very many because it's crazy to do it. It's risky. There's a lot of danger there. So we day hiked at the bottom of the Grand Canyon along the Colorado River, which is gorgeous, up some of the big bluffs, small skinny trails, 3-foot trails, 300 feet up in the air. So we took a day trip for maybe 3, 4, 5 miles the day we were down there. Then you come back, you play some cards, have a couple of beers, you try to stretch out. Put your feet in the cold water. Boy, and that's cold water.
Yeah.
And have dinner and try to stay awake till 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, you're dead. You are done. Get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast, and do it again.
How many people stay at the Phantom Ranch?
Probably there were 12 cabins, so there's probably 100 people in the cabins, and they probably had, I'm guessing, 30 or 40 campsites. So you can reserve campsites easier than you can the cabins. See, the Phantom Ranch cabins, in order to reserve a spot in the cabins, they take reservations on October 1st at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the entire Phantom Ranch is sold out in 45 minutes for the following year for all 365 days.
That's a great investment.
So it is such a popular place. So I'm done.
The walk to work sucks.
Yeah, and I'll tell you now here's what happened. That's an interesting comment. We met a number of rangers coming back and forth. They go down there for a week.
Yeah.
They do their thing down at the bottom of the Phantom Ranch, and then they're on top of the canyon for a week and doing seminars and things up there as well. Same thing with the workers. The workers are down there for a week, and they go up on top and do stuff. And the only way to get down there is walk.
You see any wildlife?
Yeah, we did see a couple of elk. We did see a couple of elk, and it's cool because but it's like you're so focused on getting from point A to point B. It's like, okay, there's an elk. Yeah, have a good day. I'll see you later. It
Didn't have a chance to look around.
No. And we had one lady behind us, the only person that I heard in the 2 days that we were down there, that got helicoptered out.
Oh.
She broke her ankle.
Okay.
And when you break your ankle, there's nothing you can do except take a helicopter ride out of there. And as a matter of fact, you're laying there until someone comes by and goes up to the top and says, listen, when I get up on top, I'm going to get some help for you guys, okay? And I'll notify the paramedics or whoever it is.
You pussy.
Well, yeah, but there was a ranger came by in about an hour and had the radio called. Within an hour, they had to helicopter this person out. And my understanding is about $2,500 when you have to take a helicopter ride out of there.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think anything about that would be cheap. And, yeah, no kidding. You didn't, so there's no chance that you'd be faking a turned ankle to get
Absolutely not. And I'm telling you, you have to focus literally on every step because it is such a everything. The terrain is so uneven. If you twist an ankle or knee, it's a very uncomfortable 2 or 3 days. So you walk very slowly, you focus very slowly, and try to take your time. And the only time you really stop and BS or look at the scenery is when you stop
and take that break.
Absolutely.
And having done that hiking out there in the mountains, you're absolutely right. You're just kind of focused on what it is. You're one foot in front of the other, where you're putting your foot, because there is no flat, just walking trail spot. No. And then you stop, you pull over to the side, as it were, step off to the side. Everybody takes their drink and their 5-minute break, and then you look around and go, holy cow, I've been walking next to a waterfall for 15 minutes and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. What do you got, Boomer?
Well, I was saying, you were talking about twisting and all that stuff, so I thought it'd be a great time to talk about some other shows on aliveandsocial.com or listen to them on iTunes. And what about the Great Northern Sex Cast? Join longtime radio personality and producer Kelly Guest and pal CEO of Fantasy Gifts, Colleen Bertino, present the sex. Grab your headphones and learn everything you always wanted to know about sex and intimacy, but were afraid to ask. To hear the latest episode or catch up on what you missed, go to aliveandsocial.com. Man, that kind of fits with the whole masturbation in the beer stand.
What would you be afraid to ask?
I'm wondering what I don't know. You know what?
I'm kind of
we should have them.
Maybe
as
when
guests.
I was 16 years old, I would love to listen to that show.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? We should definitely have those ladies on the 4 Outdoorsmen as guests.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Yeah, I mean, what's it? The wildlife, outdoors, sex cast. It all really kind
during
of
the rut
masturbation and the beer stand. I think is
exactly. You know what? Before we get them in here, we'll put down some buck urine. We'll put some scrapes on the doorway. We'll set the
spray myself with
set
some
the
fox
put on
urine.
the brute.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let's call Dan Hool, our first guest. See if I could get him on the
Back
phone.
when we started goofing around and doing this show about hunting and fishing and the great outdoors, Dan Hool was one of our first couple of guests.
He's a riot. He's a riot.
He's a good guy.
A resort owner, bush pilot for 20 years, has written a book about flying in Alaska. Character.
Yeah, he owns a couple of places, owns a place on Rainy Lake.
Oh, this is
There he is.
Dan, is that you?
This is me, Dan Wolf.
I can't tell you, Dan, how
Dan,
great
it's a
it is
great
to-
Northern Sex Cast. Welcome to our show on aliveandsocial.com.
No.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the call.
You know, Dan, this is Zepp, and we're on this aliveandsocial.com. It's a podcast, and they have many podcasts, 20, 25 different podcasts on here. I think we're the only hunting and fishing show.
Yeah, the world is changing, that's for sure.
But
yeah.
one of them is, the Great Minnesota Northern Sex Cast, and it's a couple of ladies just talking about sex. And we're thinking that it might be a good idea to have those ladies on our show. You know, we thought maybe we put down some buck urine and some scrapes in the doorway.
Live from Stokes Bay.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about making love outside, right? That's what it's all about?
Well, I think so.
Hey, let's talk to Dan Hool. Dan, Steve Straczynski here, sir. Thanks for being on. How are things up in Ely?
I think he hung up.
Hey, I tell you, just like you guys were saying, you go out in the woods and you look for the big scrapes. And the bigger the scrape, the better. That's what they all say.
There you go.
Dan Boomer, thanks for joining us. Are you seeing any scrapes or rubs up there? Are the deer in rut and Ely already, or what?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, the other day we had a big 13-pointer. I think I don't know, Stu, if I talked to you earlier or
Yeah, you
one
did.
of you guys, and just right here, we're up in Ely, Minnesota. Have nice population of wolves still, which is good, but they took down one of our big trophies the other day, 13-point buck, and that deer was in full-blown rut.
Well, it seems a little early to be in rut. Am I wrong there? Is this normal to be this early?
Well, the peak of the rut is generally in Minnesota. What do they say, guys? About the 12th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
They're not. We're only 10 days out of the 12th, or 9 days, or whatever. So yeah, things are going on. There's scrapes in the woods. There's rubs in the woods. Deer running around. I saw a nice. Oh, it's probably a 10-pointer the other day running alongside the road at 10 o'clock in the morning. When you see that going on, it's happening.
Dan, we talked a little bit about using scents. Do you use scents? Because I was talking with a guy the other day going out for the opener up around Alexandria, and they were talking about just before the rut using whether to use urine, and then when you get, maybe just a few days out from the rut, to start using estrogen and spreading that around to get the buck all crazy and weird, or whether you're going to put buck urine down next to some scrapes or something. Do you ever get into that scent stuff?
I haven't. I tried it a little bit, and I think it was a little bit comical the way I was doing it. I don't know. A lot of archery guys, those are your science guys. Those guys, I take my hat off to them. Those archery hunters, they're awesome. I'm a rifle hunter. I throw a couple, I put some shells in the pocket. I grab my rifle. I go out, do myself a little bit of hunting. I'm generally pretty lucky. My method, I like to walk around. All of a sudden, and you guys know, you get in a spot and you look around and you go, this is it, and this is where it's going to happen. And I don't know, I just sit down and wait a little bit, and I'm a believer in that. If you're hunting a buck in this part of the country, you need to be in the woods 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock for sure. But I like that 9 o'clock hour. 9 to 1 is hot stuff. I've shot more deer at noon. I remember one year I'm up on a Boundary Waters canoe lake. I had paddled in, had some friends with us. I went over. I was up on just a big cliff, looking down at the back end of a bay. I looked at my watch, and it was noon, and I go, yeah, well, it's sandwich time and buck time, and God dang it, right there off to the left, I caught a flash of horns. Here comes this bugger, just a beautiful 10-point buck, just walking along, boom, down he goes.
Dan, I'm glad you said that, because that's something I've only figured out with age, is to stick out there for the lunchtime, because when I was younger, I'd like to say 11 o'clock, but I bet you by 9, 10 o'clock, I was out of that stand and headed back to the truck or the cabin or the camper, depending where we were. I just didn't have the patience, and I'd been sitting out there since 5 o'clock in the morning, and nothing was moving, and I didn't hear anything, and I heard a gunshot way over there. By 10 o'clock, I was out of there. And then I'd go back out after lunch and all that jazz. But I've learned that you're absolutely right. That patience and waiting for it in those midday deer. After all the other goofballs have run around, the big guy, the reason he got big is because he just sat and he waited, especially after that opener. I mean, they're just going to sit and sit and sit, and then you just kind of hang out there while everybody's eating their egg sandwich, and you might just wander right into you.
Yeah. Well, they do. My theory is you're going to get a morning hunt. Your natural deer, they come out, they do their feed program, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. The does, they're getting out. The girls are out eating. I mean, they're set up on a clock.
Yep.
And that's the time right there. The doe comes out, the buck followers, because, well, us boys, we always got to follow the doe.
Oh, yeah, like a bar
That's
time.
just how it goes. That's the way. And so you get your first little push. But, my deal was always, I thought, well, that doe, there's an X amount of percentage of them that are they're going to kick that buck off. They're going like, all right, big boy, I've had enough. Get out of here. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, 9, he's been following around, and he's got to go find another doe. And he needs to start walking around. And, I mean, I'm shooting bucks at 11 o'clock. And all us guys up here, we whack some nice ones. And those bucks are trading regions looking for does, and they're always by themselves. When you shoot them at 11 o'clock or noon, 1 o'clock, they are by themselves.
Wandering.
Generally move, and they're moving pretty fast. They're trying to cover ground,
Go ahead, Boomer.
Yeah, you know what, guys? I don't want to dismiss the whole scent thing because I used to be, Dan, a real big skeptic of it, Zepp and Stru and producer Mark. But, the last few years I've scored and been lucky enough to harvest some decent bucks. Last year I got a nice basket rack 8, and I got that deer, and I was using some buck bomb. And, I don't work with them at all, but I've used that spray, and I sprayed it around the stand like it was a brothel on a tree, the way the wind was blowing away from me. And that 8-point I shot last year and the one before it the year before, it went straight to that tree. I swear, I was sitting in the stand looking, I glanced out of my left eye, and it was coming down the trail. It had its heads down, it had its nails up, and its nose up. And when you see a deer lick its nose, what it's doing is it's trying to freshen up its scent glands to scent it, and it went right towards that scent. So I've had some pretty good luck with that. Now, I do agree with that, though. That midday hunt can be magical because you're right. Everyone usually gets out of the stand around 10 a.m. They take that break. They're roughing up the woods a little bit. It spooks that buck up, and they're going to move. And there's been some monster bucks that have been shot in that afternoon hour.
And I don't want to criticize deer scents either. I think they work. I just am a little bit like Dan in that I always feel goofy when I'm using them because maybe I don't spend the time researching it. The other thing is I think, Dan, now, how long have you been hunting that piece of property? Because you have sort of a legendary deer camp up there. Every year you guys have I want to call it something more than a party, but your deer camp. What did you call it when we last had you on?
We call it the Big Buck Ball.
That's what it is.
Buck Ball. The 3 Bs.
When all my drunken friends come over, that's about what it is. It's a good time.
But you've been hunting that.
Touch on that. A lot of the guys, and you know what? We got a ton of gals. My daughter just sent me a text. Welcome to the modern world, right?
Right.
And her and her fiance, they left their guiding jobs up in Alaska 3 weeks ago. And then they went to Idaho where they live, and they went to Steelhead Camp.
Wow.
And now they've left there, and they were in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. They're headed here for deer camp.
Isn't that something?
That's Minnesota deer opener.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is really cool.
I'll tell you,
wow.
Boomer said it, you can miss Christmas, but you can't miss deer. You got to go home for deer camp. And, Dan, you've been hunting that land for a long time, and I think that's probably what you're saying. You just kind of got a feel for how they move, where you're at, what you're looking for. And so when you talk about, deer sense and that kind of stuff, Boomer, I think that is kind of fun to get into that stuff, to get out in the field and see if you can get a buck to react, or see if you can get some doe to bring a buck into you. So that is something. But I got a feeling Dan's been hunting that so long, he's kind of just another buck out there himself. He just happens to have a rifle.
Hey, Dan's, I didn't hunt last year off of Mud Creek Road because literally there's not a whole lot up there right now, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to Mud Creek Road this year as well. But you know exactly where it is. The hunting shack's on Mud Creek Road. And I've gotten, 30 or 40 deer in my entire life up there, but probably 17, I think it was 17 deer I got. 15 or 17 was from the exact same place. And we don't have any tree stands up there. It's all ridge and swamp. And so you can't, tree stands are not, tree stands are worthless where I was hunting it, but now it's all logged out of a Mud Creek Road. But there was a place called the Greek Stand, and when I was 13 years old, the first year I hunted, I heard the story about the Greek Stand, and there was a guy who apparently was from an old Greek guy who'd been hunting in the 40s and 50s when my old man was up there, and my Uncle Ernie passed this guy sitting on this log overlooking a swamp, two ridges on either side, and the deer would come in between those two ridges. This guy sat there with a blanket around him, a thermos full of coffee, and he sat there all day until he got a deer. And when this guy passed away, we somehow inherited the Greek Stand. It got the name the Greek Stand. And then eventually I got a chance to hunt on that, and I got probably 15 to 17 deer. Again, it's way back in the middle of nowhere. There's no roads. It's not farm fields. It's not private property. It's St. Louis County Forest. It's hard to do, but that spot produced a lot of deer for me. Is there one particular place that you hunt, one particular spot that you've gotten a lot of deer?
Coordinates, please. Coordinates.
Yeah.
But you just nailed it right there. And, to touch a little bit, though, on that, on the buck bombs and the scents and the timing, up here, our deer, they're not, driven to be nocturnal deer. So you don't, if we miss sunrise here, we're like, well, so what? We shoot them at 10 anyways. But if you're hunting, a different Boomer, if you're in a different region of the state and those deer are night deer, you better be on there with your scent and your buck bomb. You got to pull them bad boys out early in the morning. You will get midday activity in different regions of the state. But Stuart, up here, like you're sitting, you have a ridge and a ridge. Well, that buck, he's going to go through that swamp where the Greek Stand is. He's coming through there because he's like, all right, I'm done with this doe. She don't like me anymore. I got to go find the other one. I got to get over to that ridge. How in the heck am I going to do it? Well, I got to walk through this swamp on this trail. Boom, there it is, and that's what's going on. But we have a stand here, and Stuart, I don't know if the guy was Greek.
That's the Italian stand.
We call it the sardine stand.
Yep.
And we found that we were there, and how it started. My kid and I were down, and a big buck had crossed, and two ridges, swamp. That's what we do. We're out in the Helen Gone Bay, and we're right on the back end of a bay, and those deer have got to cross. And they're the big buck, and we messed that one up. It's a long story because you don't get them all. Well, when we walked over there where the deer was, as we were shooting, we were quite a ways away, and I looked up, and here was this big rock on this ridge. And I said, Mike, if we were there, we'd have pounded that buck, man. That'd be our deer. And so we chased that deer around, never did get him. And I went up there, and my wife came, and she goes, yeah, we went through the whole process, and I go, right up there, Lori, that's the place to be. And that goddamn girl, she went up there, and she goes, yeah, this is my new stand.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, I hope some of you gals are out there listening, I'll tell you. That girl went out there. We thought she was up there to hatch an egg or something. She got up there, and you know what? And she has shot bucks after bucks after bucks, and I mean bad boys. And they come down the same trail, and she goes there all year, and she's like that Greek guy, just sits there and sits there. It's pretty fantastic spot. And but when I went up there and started to build her stand, Stuart, we found a sardine can up there.
There you go. Yeah.
Somebody, some old Greek guy or somebody, probably a Finlander in this country.
We had a place. We had a place called
Peanut
Peanut Butter Rack.
So we call it the sardine stand.
There you go.
That's the sardine stand.
Go ahead, Boomer's got a story.
It's
Go ahead,
funny.
Boomer.
We all have those stands, but I agree. We have land on our land up there. We call them the superhighway trails because there are trails on our land that I've hunted for 25 plus years that those deer still use, and we build those stands around them. And Nicole's going to be out there with me for the first time, and we're going to be hunting a stand that I call the meat stand because it's been the one that's produced some of the biggest bucks. And it seems like even that one that came down that trail right towards that doe and estrus spray I had out there, they always seem to come down that same trail, no matter what you get put out there. And we use that doe and heat spray because, Dan, our deer up there in that Hackensack Bacchus area are very nocturnal and very spooky. And so we got to be clever to get them out. Now, one thing that I've never done, and I'm going to open this up to producer Mark or Stru or yourself, Dan, is I've never rattled antlers. I've never used a doe call, like the can you turn over. Bah. I've never gotten into that. Dan, have anybody in your deer camp or you guys used that and had any luck with it?
You're first, Danny boy.
Yeah. We're all us guys are carrying a grunt call. Just it'll stop a buck. It'll get them to stop and maybe come over and take a look. I have not had any success with the doe or the bleat or rattling anything like that.
Me neither.
I've tried like everybody. I've tried and I've sat there and I just get so pumped up. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like one of them still mornings. It's maybe 10 degrees, and they can hear it a half mile away. It's just like, come on. But and then one shows up, and then you go, well, I've never been able to ask one why it shows up.
Hey Dan, I'll tell you what.
I'm going to.
I've rattled a couple of times as well, just because I read about it. I know a lot of people do it down south in Texas and whatnot. I've rattled it. I've tried it maybe 3 or 4 times without any luck. Yeah. And I've read about it, and it's not a complicated process. I think you probably have to give it a chance. But like you said, Dan, did they come because of the rattling, or did they come because you just don't know? Yeah. And something that you talked about earlier made me think about this. I've never hunted private land in my life. Never have. It's always been, and the only place I've ever deer hunted was up in...
Could change next year.
And the only place I've ever hunted was up in Ely, Minnesota, off of Mud Creek Road. It's nothing but ridge and swamp. And a lot of these kids, and I consider Boomer a kid who's 37 years old, Dan, I think they're you're spoiled little brats who don't understand exactly what you have. We have never, where we hunt, it's impossible to bring a 4-wheeler out there to haul a deer out of the woods. We had more than many times had 2-day drags with nothing but ropes and toboggans over ridge and swamp to get the deer back out of the woods. But today, a lot of these fans, and more power to you. I wish I was like you, where you can take the 4-wheeler to the tree, sit in the tree, shoot the deer, put the deer in the 4-wheeler, and go back home. That's not like what it was up in Ely, Minnesota.
Well, I'll tell you, 4-wheelers drive me a little bit crazy during hunting season because everybody's on them and everybody's moving around at all different times of the day. I think they can be a little bit of a nuisance. Having said that, I'm the first guy that'll run back and get the 4-wheeler and drag a buck out. However,
Boomer, and it's uphill both ways.
Yeah.
You walk backwards in minus 40-degree weather in the blizzard.
That's why you shot all those small ones, huh, Stru?
That's about it.
It's an easier drag. What do you guys think? I guess this all comes from hunting private land, but knowing how your neighbors, you talk about how deer move around. Yeah. One of the things I used to do, we had what's called Reese Hill, and you had to lay on your belly because we tried to put bales up there and ground blinds and all sorts of different things, and they just... the deer knew it was cut grass, and they just, if there was something up there, they weren't going to move around. But I would move over there after opening morning You know, I'd have my sandwich. I'd move over there just before lunchtime because the neighbors started shooting over there and running them around. And we sort of had an escape route through a little gully, a wet slough through our land that they'd kind of use that escape route. And I knew if I went up and laid down on that Reese Hill, I got more nice buck running away that they shot at that I ended up getting. But knowing how those deer move, do you guys, Dan, you have neighbors that, because, you know, once you start running them, we've all probably shot a buck that was on the run from somebody else shooting at it.
Well, you know, I'll tell you about my neighbor.
That's always a good start.
There we go.
Take a sip of the drink first, Dan.
And I hope he's listening tonight. His name's Skippy Wonderlick.
Skippy, that sounds made up.
Skippy Wonderlick. He's over in Isabella, Minnesota. Skippy, he is quite the hunter, you know.
You betcha.
He's out there, and he's just, oh, boy, it's a big fall. He had to go to Montana to shoot some ducks, and then he had to go to North Dakota and get some pheasants. And, it was a big round-robin year, you know. And by gummy, I tell you what, he was not going to miss deer hunting, was he? I mean, like you said earlier, you can miss Christmas, but you better make it for deer hunting. Skippy got back, and he got here for deer hunting, and he's like, he grabs his stuff. He's got his own, he'd like bought a house in Isabella, right? And our deer shack, I hunt with some guys down, we got deer shacks all over, and Skippy, he gets his stuff. He pulls in from Montana, I think. From Montana is where he came from that night. Friday night, and he got in about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30. It's like midnight, so everything's shut down. He gets to his place. He gets up in the morning, gets his thermos of coffee. He's going to get the hog, right? He loads up the pickup. He goes out, he gets in the woods, you know, he's got his big orange coat on and his big orange hat, and he goes out in the woods, and he gets in his stand, and he's looking, and he's waiting, and he's hunting, and he's waiting, and he's hunting, and nothing came down the trail. And he's like, that's pretty slow today. You know, he didn't hear much shooting there. He just thought, So he goes to my other friend, Danny Spina, over in Lake County. He's a timber cruiser. And still, you know, up here, those timber cruisers, I mean, they're dialed in. Those guys will walk in the woods all day. And he comes over and he knocks on Danny's door. It's Saturday, you know, about 11 o'clock. And Danny comes out opens the door. He goes, hey, he looks at Skippy, and here's Skippy. He's all oranged up and ready. He goes, hey, Skippy, what are you doing? And Skippy says, well, I've been out deer hunting. And he says that, and I went over to Tommy's cabin, and the guys aren't there, he says, and I'm wondering, how come they're not there, and if something happened, and Danny goes, what were you doing this morning? He goes, well, I was out deer hunting, he says, and it's just, I haven't heard much shooting or nothing. And Danny goes, come on in the house, he says, we'll have to make a telephone call. And he calls Tommy, my buddy, and he goes, one of your hunting buddies here went deer hunting today, Skippy Wonderlick. And Skippy, he goes, well, what's wrong? He goes, well, it's not the opener, he says. So we got in the camp, we got a picture of Minnesota up there and one little orange dot.
Well, thank goodness he didn't see one coming down the trail.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's what Danny said. He says, God, I just wish he'd have had a nice buck.
Yeah, can you see Skippy getting a nice buck, and he drives through town with it on the hood of his car, and he's all excited about it.
Only in Minnesota do we find it normal to have a deer on the top of the car.
I'll tell you, Skippy ought to stay out of town for the next deer opener because he's going to take grief for that every year for the rest of his life.
We've only he hardly comes to the big buck ball anymore.
Hey, Dan.
Isn't
Dan.
there a contest up there, Stru?
Oh, he's got the big
Well,
buck
you
ball
guys,
contest.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for the call.
Yeah.
Dan, we appreciate it up there. And you got still got Stokes Bay going up there on Rainy in Ontario, right?
Yeah, we got Stokes Bay Resort. It's a boat-in resort, and outpost style. Bring a sleeping bag, do some walleye fishing, and I have been there 13 years. It's just a regular trip. It's affordable. You can go bang out some walleyes. Although September, I don't know. We had a horrible September, but the rest of the season was just great. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You're a blessed
you,
young
Danny.
man.
Huh?
I said you're a blessed young man. We got to wrap it up with you, Dan. Thanks for being on the Four Outdoorsman on AliveAndSocial.com. I'll get back to you tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about this and how to find this show and how to spread it to the rest of the world as well. You were one great interview, and thanks for your time.
You bet, guys. It's always a good one. So
Say hi.
thank you.
Say
Have
hi
a
to
nice night.
you bet. Say hi to Skippy for us, will you?
Good luck, buddy.
I'm gonna see you.
Take care,
Look
Dan.
for the little orange dot.
Take care, buddy. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
That's a lot of fun. Hey, guys, I want to take a quick time out here to thank the folks at Devil's Lake. I know we're talking about deer opener right now, but there is a great migration. We talked about what's going on here. You know, you were looking at the DU map.
I was looking at the DU map earlier, and Devil's Lake is hot as a rocket right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing some beautiful pictures of ducks that are being shot out there. And the fall bite, as you guys know, I know we're talking deer hunting, but the fall bite is just still heating up. They're smashing them out on Devil's Lake. And if you're thinking about doing some ice fishing, which that place is a mecca because Devil's Lake is loaded with a natural forage base of shrimp out there, you better start booking because there's some beautiful lodges, resorts, hotels, great places to eat. Don't forget to think about Devil's Lake when you're making your ice fishing
I'll
trip.
tell you, Boomer, with this weather we've been having, we're getting a longer, warmer fall, some cooler weather coming in. Not quite cool enough for my taste, but to get up there and to do some duck hunting, that migration is hitting hard up there, and to do some fishing, that combo, to get up there for both on a weekend. I mean, it's not, I mean, you've still got several weekends. Do your deer opener this weekend. You still have a couple of good weekends of migration up there, and you're fishing if it stays this nice out.
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that's got the wheels in my head turning.
Now, listen to help me out here, Zepp and Boom.
Yeah.
If I was going to just start getting ready to go duck hunting, wherever you're going duck hunting, going deer hunting, and I wanted to sight in my rifle or get someone to take care of it, where would I go? Where's the best place
I
to
would
go?
go to a
Trading
place
company.
in Forest Lake.
And what's
Lakes
that?
Trading Company, buddy.
You know, I think a lot of people forget how I always think to myself, oh, Forest Lake, it's way up there. And then you drive up there and go, oh, it's just a hop and a skip. You know, I mean, it's like anywhere you get around the metro, it takes you, 10, 15 minutes to get there. And that's how far away Forest Lake is. And Lakes Trading Company right there downtown. The thing about it is those guys do a little bit of everything. You can kind of home base it for year round, whether you need your gun worked on, whether you want to get a conceal and carry. They've got the ladies' night up there on Friday nights. You just want to do a little shooting with the handgun. They've got an outdoor course. It's just a good place to home base your firearms operations.
And I tell you what, guys, I know we're talking about deer hunting, and we are all jacked to get in the stands this weekend. But deer opener can also be a special time for the hardcore anglers out there, the fishing men and women. And you got to give a shout out to the Alumacraft folks in St. Peter, Minnesota, that have been sponsoring our show. And it is still a great time to buy a boat. I know people are wrapping up the fall season. We're starting to think about ice fishing, but there's still some really good deals you can get on Alumacrafts right now because a lot of those pros out there or whatnot that are selling their boats, those Alumacrafts, guys, I know I love my T-Pro. It will be for sale here for in a little bit. It is a great time to get out there because I tell you what, those boats, when we had that Tournament Pro out on Mille Lacs, it was 14-mile-an-hour winds coming from the west into the east, and we had some pretty massive swells hitting us, and that T-Pro just glided right through them and gave us a dry ride. So don't forget about buying an Alumacraft right now because I know we're talking hunting, but it's still a great time. So visit your local Alumacraft dealer or go to alumacraft.com to learn more and get your 2016 Alumacraft brochure to see next year's models.
Cool.
That's when you know what kind of boat you have.
Yes.
Anybody, on a glass lake day with a beautiful bluebird sky. But when the winds start and you get the chop and everything else going, you know what kind of boat you ended up buying.
I think Boomer's got it all wrong here. But maybe I have it all wrong because he's always talking about the T-Pro and how it rides and all the storage it's got and the tow holds and everything it's got. And all I'm thinking when I was fishing with you last year on the T-Pro 185, now you got the 195, I think. I was impressed with how many places I could put my Coors Light and not have it tip over. And I'll tell you what, it is one hell of a boat. And by the way, Coors Light thanks for sponsoring the show because we're having a cold one right now, but Coors Light is as good as it gets. And it's been around, I firmly believe that. I drank Coors Light for years, long before they sponsored this show, and I will continue to do so.
I've got a pair of Coors Light skis that I ski on, so take that.
Really?
I do.
And you get the blue on the can when it's cold, right?
Yeah, I like the blue. I don't. Oh, yeah, that is the blue on there.
The
There's
Blue Mountains
Born in the
of Coors Light.
Rockies. Yeah, absolutely. I've been thanking our sponsor all night. So.
Now, producer Mark, you haven't said much during the show. What are you going to be doing for Deer Opener?
Well, I think I'm going to go with a friend out to the Alexandria area. His in-laws have a place, and I haven't been out in a while, to be honest with you, with kids and everything, and I'm really excited to get back out on the stand and give it a shot. I got a new 308. I'm going to go to Lakes Trading, and I'm going to have them bore sight it just to get it close before I go out, but I'm really excited to go out there. I think I'm going to do duck hunting this weekend as well on opener, just because I don't have a place to go, and my wife is almost going to have a baby, so I can't go too far.
I wish I had the control buttons at Mark's. He's always I got no place to go. Play that crybaby. Play that crybaby thing, would you? Yeah.
I'm always just waiting for an invite to all these nice places. But
he's going to be hearing plenty of that soon enough.
You're not going to be hunting on land that has marijuana on it this year, are you?
No. Those days are long gone. That was a great story back in the day when my father and I got busted for growing a marijuana operation, even though we didn't, I swear. But
hey, don't forget in a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, the handicapped hunter Craig Munson is taking us to Wild Wings to shoot a few pheasants.
We're going to be out there.
It's a weekday.
12th, right?
It's November 12th. That's what the day was. It's a weekday morning thing about 9 o'clock. So Zepp can come, the big radio guy here can come, and we're all invited. And Craig's taking us, and he's going to take the old man too. He wants Vaughn to come as well.
Oh God, he'll love it.
Yeah, I just talked to Chad up. Oh no, wait, that was Wings North. That's the Sun's place.
Correct.
I stand corrected.
Yeah,
I haven't been over to the other place.
So Boomer, you got to bring your dog. You got one of your
Yeah,
Sugar?
we'll bring Sugar.
All right,
we'll bring the little Springer out there and let her tear up the pheasants a little bit.
Cool.
God, what a great time in Minnesota. We're talking about pheasant hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting, fall fishing, smallies, walleyes. What a great time.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about getting those big 20-inch smallies up in Mille Lacs, and the migration is happening. The deer opener is this weekend. We've got some time to get out and do our deer hunting, but you're right. It's really happening right now. And although I don't think the four of us are doing it right now, I was out in South Dakota for it, still very good upland hunting. Minnesota, Iowa just had their opener this past weekend. I had some buddies down there in Iowa, some South Dakota buddies that went down there, got their limit. Boy, some tailgate of big, beautiful birds down there in Iowa. I guess Iowa's having a banner year. South Dakota's had a great year. Minnesota down a little bit, but I understand the grouse hunting has been fantastic up north of the cities.
And the crops should be all out here pretty soon, shouldn't they?
Yeah,
give those pheasants
they're getting them out right now. The corn's the beans are out, the corn's coming out, and they're going to be all in our nice little killing fields, harvest fields. What did I say?
Still waiting for the invite, Mr. Sepp, to Great Plains hunting. But,
I know, Mom and Dad listening out
in.
there. Just saying, fellas here don't think we really have a place out there.
You guys keep talking about hunting birds and whatnot. I'm excited about still being able to play a round of golf, and I played a round of golf today, so I had a shot of 91, had a great time, but I worked as well. I still have a job, guys. So
it's a great day or a great time of the year for four guys to be outdoors.
Yes, and be safe out there on Deer Opener, folks. Safety first. Safety first.